Hello my honeys, welcome to this video. Today we're going to be talking about the father wound, specifically you healing your father wound. So stick around, watch this whole entire video to the end if you want to understand all the reasons how you even get the father wound, what it means in your life, in your finances, what it does in your love life, and how to heal it so you can actually have the life you want. And at the end of this video, I'm also going to invite you to join my free community, the House of Evolution, where hotties just like you get to be spiritual, rich, hot, and happy. It's completely free, and we get to do it with bliss and ease. But like I said, I'll talk about that at the end of this video. So let's get on with the video where I talk to you about the father wound, how to heal the father wound. What even is the father wound? How do you get them? What is it doing in your life? What are the signs in your life that you are currently experiencing the father wound? And then we're going to talk about you healing it. So before we talk about the father wounds, we want to set the foundations. We want to talk about what are woundings, and we want to talk about fathers. So the first thing is, everybody you know, all 8 billion people on this planet have fathers. Can you believe that? Every person has a father, a biological father. Maybe their father wasn't present, but every person that you know has a father. So there are 8 billion people. That means 8 billion fathers. Well, maybe not 8 billion fathers. Some people have 10 kids, just saying. But in terms of fathers, every person has one. And so this is one of the most prominent wounds that I see with my clients, because we all have parents, we all have a mother, we all have a father. And so the father wound is actually one of the most prevalent wounding, especially because it affects our relationships and it affects our finances, and a lot of people want to work on those things. Now, what is a wound? When we talk about a wounding is where there's an unmet expectation, but because there's also a high intense emotion along with the unmet expectation, it creates a fracture in our unconscious mind, and therefore we have a wounding. And what woundings can look like is trauma responses, triggers, unhealed and shadow sides of ourselves because of this thing. So let me explain that again. There was an expectation that was not met. However, it's not just the unmet expectation, there was also a high emotional response to this unmet expectation, and our unconscious mind creates a little loop, a little lock, a little fracture to help us to survive. Okay, so whenever we have any kind of wounding, if you have wounding around your mother, if you have money wounds, if you have feelings of not enough, or any kind of wounding that you have, it comes from an unmet need, desire, or expectation merged with a high intensity emotion around that situation that creates a fracture. So now if you think about when you have a cut, right? If you ever gotten a piercing, you know this. You pierce your ears, you pierce wherever on your body, and all of a sudden it's like your ear hits on the door, your ear hits on everything. You're passing something, your ear keeps hitting on stuff, even though your ear wasn't hitting on anything before, but you can feel that pain coming in. Or the moment you have a bruise or a wound or a cut, all of a sudden you're hitting on things. Let's say you went to the gym, you worked out, you got pains in your legs, you're going down the stairs, you're feeling the pain. So wounding comes up when we have this fracture in our emotions based on an unmet need, desire, and expectation that had a high intense emotion attached to it. And so we now have a point of sensitivity, a point of a trigger, right? So when something happens and you get triggered, it's because there's a wound somewhere there. Now, so that's wounding. Now, the father wound specifically, because we talk about fathers, we all have fathers. The father wound specifically comes into play when the desire, need, and unmet expectation came from what was meant to be the father in the situation. Now, when we say unmet expectations, I'm talking not just about you in your personal family. Maybe your dad was not there for you, or maybe he was there for you, but he was hard on you, or maybe he was there for you, but he didn't do his best, or he didn't do what you considered to be what you would have wanted. I'm not just talking about the unmet expectations and desires in that way. I'm talking also about the unmet desire, which, by the way, guys, if you hear a noise, sometimes I have noise in my background. So if you hear any noise, just bear with me, but just listen to the content and the value of what I'm sharing, because it will change the game for you. Now, when we have, so when I'm talking about the unmet expectation of the father wound, it doesn't only come from your personal situation in your household. It also comes from the societal expectation of a father, okay? If you don't have a notebook, I would even say pause this video, grab your notebook, and take notes on this. I'm not holding back. I'm teaching you the things that I teach my clients and that I help my clients with. So with the father wound, for example, it's not just what happened in your household and the unmet expectations, needs, and desires, and your high intense emotions around that. Whether you suppress them or not, they're still there. Your body keeps the score. Your body knows that emotion is there. So we're not just talking about what happened in your personal life. there's also a societal expectation of what a father is. For centuries, millennia actually, the father is the provider and the protector. So when there is not that provision and when there is not that protection, meaning if you have abuse or he just wasn't there, he just abandoned you and he just wasn't there, when you have that, there is also this wounding that is passed through as a societal standard of what a father is expected to do, right? Then we also have the epigenetics, meaning your physical biology. Now, in epigenetics, your DNA can store memories of up to 14 generations. Science is proving that it's up to 14. I used to teach years ago when science, I always keep up to date with the science behind things, and it was tracked up to 6. They recognize now that no, epigenetics is showing that up to 14 worth of memory can be stored in the DNA. And so that means if you look at it societally and biologically and culturally and ancestrally, the way in which we have fractures around fatherhood gets passed on. And it's not just for women, men have this too. You'll find some men, they may not be as present in their child's life. There's also this father, they also have father wounds. So maybe some of you watching here are men, but they have this father wound that is passed on, even epigenetically. And until we reframe that, which it's not hard to change, it's not hard to change, I promise you it's not hard to change, it's what I do with my clients, it's not hard to change. It gets to change because remember, there was somebody who didn't have it and they coded it in. So just as somebody could code it into the DNA, you can code something else in, okay? So we can change this, and that's why the inner healing work, the shadow work and all that stuff is important, which I'll talk about how to heal the father wound at the end of this video. But I want you to understand wounding, right? That point of sensitivity. We talked about the fathers and the how wounding gets coded in. And so wounds get coded in when there's an unmet expectation, desire, or need merged with a high intensity emotion that creates a fracture. Now, when this is done on a societal level, the expectation is big. Fathers do this, fathers do that, fathers don't do this, fathers don't do that. So when that is not happening, for example, provision, protection, safety, if there's any form of abuse or neglect or just abandonment, or even just leading in a way that is not in alignment with what that expectation is, there can be a ripple effect of a father wound being created right there, right? Especially if, as I said, there is a high intensity emotion along with it. Why is the high intensity emotion important? If you watch my videos, you'll see me in other contexts and other things. I'll talk about high intensity emotion and how things get coded into your unconscious mind. So that's how these fractures get created. So how do you know if you have a father wound? How do you know if the father wound is affecting you? Well, number one, the father wound can play out in many different ways. It'll play out in, first of all, your feelings of enough and your feelings of not enough, right? Because remember, enough, the frequency or the concept, the notion of being enough comes from provision. It's a provision wound. Am I enough? Is there enough food? Is there enough in the house? That enoughness comes from the father wound. So whenever there's a feeling of not enough, not good enough, not smart enough, these are all branches of the root of not enough. Now let me say this can also come from the mother wound. So you have to look at, your own personal situation growing up. I'll do other videos about the mother wound at another time as well. Or maybe if it's already up, you'll probably see it linked somewhere here. But generally speaking, it comes from that provision wound of not enough, right? I'm not enough. And so why else do we see this in the not enough wound, or why else do we see this coming up? When you have to work really hard to prove yourself, that is masculine energy. That is the father wound. That is, I have to prove myself. I have to overwork, burn out, overgive. And when you're in hyper masculine, that comes from the father wound. Because I want you to think about this with me. I'm going to share a Bible example. Now, for those of you who are in my world, you guys know I love using Bible stories and Bible scriptures. Now, I want you to take the story of the prodigal son, okay? The prodigal son, this kid got his inheritance and he went and he partied it out, okay? He partied hard, spent all his money. But when he came back, the father welcomed him with open arms and even threw him a party. It was safe. He was safe to make mistakes. He was safe to learn from his mistakes. He was given room and grace to grow. And even think about like Father God, there's grace, right? Grace, right? So that whole thing of being enough, being safe, safety, that comes from protection. That is the father wound right there. So when you find that in your life, you are in hyper masculine, and let me say this, I have to interject here because there are a lot of you who you may have a good relationship with your father, but you still find that you're in hyper masculine with your success, it means that your mother, where you learned it from, was in masculine energy. And if you track back her situation, she probably has the father wound too. So it's still the same ripple effect, is the ripple effect of the same wounding. Even if, like as I said, your father wound doesn't just come from your personal experience of your father, it also comes from your epigenetics of the father, and it also comes from the societal programming around fathers as well. So I would just wanted to interject there, because I know that some of you have great relationships with your dad, but if you look at it, your mom was hyper masculine. And so if you look at her specific situation, she may not have had the provision and the protection and that safety. And so she became hyper masculine, and she's passing that on, and you're seeing that as how it gets to be. But it is coming from the wounded place. Now, here's the thing. If it serves you, continue living your life, okay? Don't let me tell you that you need to heal something that if it's not broke, don't fix it, right? Like, you have people who they don't want to heal that stuff. But for those of you who are here and you're like, actually, I do want to heal this because I see how it's affecting me in other areas too, then you can continue to watch this video. Now, this is where the other people have left. For those of you who are here, hi. Thank you for sticking around. Now, another way how it shows up is with your love life, okay? This one is huge. This one is one of the ones that's a little bit more common for people to understand. People talk about, oh, you know, she has daddy issues or whatever it is. And I want to say this. When you do not feel safe because father wound, when you do not feel enough because of the father wound, when you feel like you have to prove yourself, overgive, and like show them that you're worthy and prove yourself, right? So here's the thing, right? How this shows up in love life. This is just one of the ways. Obviously, there's more ways. If you want me to do another video on this, comment and let me know. I'll do another video more deeply on how the father wound affects your love life. Or if it's already created, it'll be linked somewhere here or in the description or something like that. So always check for the links and stuff. But if you think about it, right? We talk about daddy issues, and that's one that's more common when we talk about the father wound and how it affects us in our relationships. But I want to explain to you how that actually takes place. So this element comes from the feeling of safety, which is protection. Remember, provider and protector. The protection, okay, when you're protected, that means you feel safe. When you don't feel safe, what do you have? You have your walls up. You have a defense mechanism. You're in survival mode because you're not actually safe, right? Work with me here. I'm walking you through it. So you have this defense mechanism and you think, okay, this is going to protect me from being hurt, right? Because again, father wound. So now you're in hyper protection. You're in your like your defense mechanism zone. But here's the problem. When you're in a defense mechanism zone, I want you to understand that we live in a world that actually scientifically has quantum particles. I know for some of you this may go over your head. Listen to it again if you need to. But like attracts like. So when you are defensive and you're in your protection mode and you're in a hyper fixation of, I've got to protect myself, I've got to have my walls up, you do not look for the person who is safe. You have your alarm bells on and you're scanning, your unconscious mind is scanning for what's unsafe, what's unsafe, what's unsafe, what's unsafe, what's unsafe. So all of a sudden, who do you go for? You don't go for the guy that's actually, or the person that's going to actually be safe for your nervous system, because your nervous system is used to being in defense mechanism. So you go for what's familiar. You go for the person who's actually toxic, the person who's emotionally unavailable. You will have 10 people before you and you're going to choose the one person that is actually going to be the person that's just not that good for you. Why? Because your unconscious mind is in defense mode, but in defense mode, it's scanning for risks. It's actually literally scanning for risks. You're looking for, where are the red flags? Where are the red flags? It's the unconscious mind is doing that to protect you, but you see that person and you feel butterflies. You feel, oh my God, there's something here. No, what's there is a red flag. You need to run. Like, genuinely, babes, run for the hills. No, what do? Oh my God, I feel like we have a connection. And of the 10 people who are DMing you, messaging you, calling you, wanting to court you, you pick the one person who is actually the red flag. Why? Because you're in hyperfixation around protection, which is the father wound. And so you pick bad seeds. You're like, whoa, mind blown. I know all of this because I've been this. And I know all of this because I've coached, literally, when I say thousands of women, I'm not joking. I literally have coached thousands of women and men as well. thousands of people. So I share this with you because this is how the father wound affects your dating life and your love life. When you heal the father wound, your nervous system is actually in an exhale and it's quite calm. And because it's calm, when you are actually scanning, you'll see the red flag where you're like, oh, that's a red flag. And you'll see the person who is safe for your nervous system, who feels like protection. Not you need to protect yourself. They feel like protection. They feel safe, and you'll choose better people. So that's how that affects your dating life as well, right? So you see how it comes up in your success when you're burning out, overworking because you're not enough. You have to push. Or when you, and that can also come from, by the way, the push can also come from when you have a father who expects so much of you and you've got to like be better. And so that's also wounding because there's an expectation or a missed expectation where you want to be accepted for who you are and loved and know that you are enough, but you're expected that you're only loved when you hit these standards, right? They may not say those in those words, but you are experiencing that in your reality, right? They love you and you love them, but that expectation of like, don't fail, right? You got to get it right. Make me proud, that kind of thing. So that's expectation in your high intensity emotion of like wanting to be a good child, wanting to make your parents happy. We all want to do that. And so that can create that burnout mentality as well. And that's why you have people who they have great relationships with their dads, but they are burnt out because they have an expectation that was not met. The expectation that you will love me even if I am doing nothing, just doing nothing. No, you have to be better. You have to work hard. You know, especially I see this with like clients who are coming from immigrant families. It's like, oh my God, if you don't, we work so hard to get here. You gotta make us proud. You gotta, live up to this standard, which nothing's wrong with that. As again, as I said earlier, if it's not broke, don't fix it. If you don't want to fix it, don't fix it. But for those of you who do want to, we can talk about that because now I'm going to dive into, well, one more thing about how it manifests in your life, the father wound, and then we'll talk about how to actually heal it. So the third way in which it can manifest in your life is around your finances. If money, remember money is or societal metric for provision, right? That's or societal metric for provision. So if money is hard for you and you are fighting, pushing, trying, proving yourself for money, or money is not supporting you, or you have to work hard for it, prove yourself for it, all that stuff. If that's your mindset around it, that also is some kind of wounding of the father wound. And if you think about like trust fund kids, they don't see life that way because provision was never a problem. The father wound around provision wasn't there. Maybe they were abandoned and they may not have certain other things, and they can also have father wounds too. But in terms of monetary provision, and they may have, not being held, not having space held for them. The father was abandoning them, not there for them. So they may have other kinds of wounding around, still choosing the wrong partners and stuff like that. But in terms of financial provision, they never lacked that. So their blueprint does not carry that forth into their lives. One, epigenetically, they probably had ancestors who also passed on wealth. And then from their own personal lived experience, they had provision. So when you maybe had a father who maybe ran multiple businesses, but he just never made it, he was just never successful, that gives you certain blueprints around provision. When your father wasn't there and you weren't provided for, that gives you certain blueprints around provision, and that affects how you are today. Especially for those of you who are entrepreneurs, it affects what you allow your sales to look like. It affects all of that. So that's another way how the father wound can show up in your life. Now we've done all of that, you understand wounds, how they get formed, father wound, ways it shows up in your love life, in your regular life, in your businesses, in your success, in your finances. Now it's time to look at how to heal the father wound. Now with my clients, I like to look at multiple different ways of healing all the different wounds, because we have the father wound, we have the money wound, we have the mother wound, we have the sister wound, when you're jealous, all that stuff. I'll do other videos on that, or maybe they're already up. Again, watch the videos on the channel so you can see which ones are relevant to you. And remember to stick around to the end when I share with you how you can come join our free community. But in order to heal, there are two primary ways that I like to use with clients. There are multiple ways, there are a myriad of ways, but the two primary ones that I like are the mental plane and the biological plane. So a lot of times people like to do the healing on the mindset plane. So they'll do affirmations, journaling, all that stuff. Now, here's what I think. If the emotional charge around the wounding, meaning, let's say it's around love, right? If the emotional charge is not very high, and I'm not talking for those of you who suppress your emotions, I'm talking when you allow yourself to really feel the feelings of what it feels like to be abandoned, to be rejected, to not be provided for, to be hurt, to have your safety affected, to have your protection and provision affected. When you really allow yourself to see yourself deeply in the shadow of the emotion, the muck of it all. If it's not a high intensity emotion, I say you can go with the mindset work, the mindset healing around it. So that can be reframing through affirmations, that can be through reframing through declarations. It can be through journaling, processing. It can be through having conversations with the person who hurt you, whether they're dead or alive. It could be, a visualization conversation. We use that in counseling and therapy as well. You can do that with them. You can do, if it's a real person that you have a relationship with, actually having a conversation with them, not because you want them to change or fix anything, but as a way of giving that inner child the chance to just finally be heard. It can be talk therapy with yourself around it. That's the mindset. That's just the mindset. But the part that I recognize most people need, and this is what's missing from the personal development space, and this is why I'm so adamant about doing the videos I'm doing on this channel moving forward, it's because the somatic work is needed. Our emotions are stored in our bodies. At the beginning of this, you heard me talk about the epigenetics and the memory, the cellular memory that passes on through 14 generations. It's called cellular memory. That means it's in your physical cells, it's in your body. There is cellular wisdom, there's muscle memory, there's your conscious adult mind may not remember the first time the abuse happened, or may not consciously remember the first time the neglect happened, or may not consciously remember the first time, but your body never forgets. Your body never forgets. It literally codes in for survival of future species all of these emotions so that the future species don't have to learn it the hard way. That's exactly what your body codes it in. So in order to clear it properly, you have to clear it at a somatic level. And this is where most people go wrong. So that's the second way. Now, in terms of somatics, I have a specific process that I use with my clients called the somatic shadow alchemy process. And it allows you to intuitively amplify your intuition and let your body lead you to where in your body the emotion is trapped, and then to alchemize it from your own specific body. Other tools that people can use are things like EFT tapping, things like breath work, that kind of stuff to help get it out. But like I said, for me with my clients, I teach a specific process called the somatic shadow alchemy process, because I merge that physical somatic practice with the actual journal prompts to get into the mindset, into the mind. So we're alchemizing the mind and the body at the same time. And so what happens is when you're able to finally alchemize that through your body, it's like your nervous system completely resets around that belief. The charge disappears. Now, remember what a wounding is? Wounding comes in when there's an unmet expectation, an unmet desire, an unmet need, but there's a high emotional intensity with it too. When we neutralize that, you might still be disappointed that your dad wasn't there. You might still be disappointed that this thing happened, but you no longer are controlled by the emotional waves of that circumstance. And now, when you make decisions, you're making them from a place of autonomy and newness. So this is just one video. I'll be making videos like this all the time on my channel, and I have old videos about like feminine energy, healing feminine energy, intuition, manifesting, all that stuff on this channel. So go ahead and catch up on some of those videos, or watch the newer videos depending on when you're watching this video in the sequence of videos you're watching. But most importantly, if you want to work on this stuff, I would say come join my free community. We'll link it in the description. And in that free community, that's where you'll be able to get like free audios, free PDFs, a community of other people across the world who are working on this because they want to be spiritual, rich, hot, and happy, and create and get everything they want with bliss and ease, right? That's who this is for. You want to be spiritual, rich, hot, and happy, and get everything you want with bliss and ease. That's the House of Evolution. That's my community. And like I said, it's free to come and join us. And if that's not there, there'll be some kind of free gift, like a free PDF, a free audio, a free masterclass. There's always some juicy goodies linked below. So go ahead and get that. And then obviously for those of you who you want to go deeper, you're like, I'm ready to heal this now. I'm ready to fix this now because I want to get everything I want. I want to glow up and I want it now. Then obviously you can always work with me privately or in my programs. All right, so there'll be information for that. In fact, there's information for that in the free community too, so you can come and join the free community. So thank you for watching. I'll see you in my next video. Kisses, peace, and love to you. Ciao.